Hello there, I'm Jimmy Vegas, and yes, we are back with another Will Fail video from me, and this time we're taking a look at Resident Evil 9. Look, I've done these videos in the past, and I always say this: you can't take what I say as gospel, as truth. This is my opinion, and these are my thoughts and my analysis on different things that I've seen over the course of my many years gaming. So, I'm going to start with a theory which is basically, I think, is a load of garbage. But it's a theory that people are floating around. I don't know why. So the theory is every third mainstream Resident Evil game is not as good as the other two. So let me put this into perspective. Let's look at Resident Evil 1, the very first one. Excellent. Resident Evil 2, fantastic. Resident Evil 3 was okay. And the general consensus is it's not as good as 2. Okay, fair enough. Resident Evil 4, absolutely fantastic. Resident Evil 5, despite everything, a solid game and still possibly one of the best Resident Evil games to sell ever. That tells you something. Resident Evil 6. Look, I'm not going to get into Resident Evil 6, but fine, whatever. Resident Evil 7, really, really good. Reinvented itself. Resident Evil 8, Village, fantastic. I love 8 more than 7. Resident Evil 9, fail. Okay, so look, the theory is 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, every third game is going to be not as good. So can we feasibly say that it will fail just because it is number 9? No, not at all. That's silly. That's ridiculous. However, one thing Resident Evil 9 will have to live up to is the hype and success of everything Capcom has done in the last, let's say, 5, 6, 7 years. Look at Resident Evil 7, look at Resident Evil 8, look at Resident Evil 4 Remake, Resident Evil 2 Remake, okay? Resident Evil 3 Remake, bit short, content missing. But do you know what? Resident Evil 3 Remake was solid. It was good. It was fantastic. It was really good to play. But everything else that Capcom has done, every other Resident Evil, has been brilliant. And there's no denying that. Capcom have done a fantastic job of every Resident Evil up until this point. Are we going to see Resident Evil Revelations 3, though? I don't know, but I'll do a video on that failing if we ever get to that point, because I have reasons, I have thoughts, I have opinions, but everyone has got an opinion, whatever. So, can Resident Evil 9 actually live up to the hype? Can it live up to what everyone's expectations are? Is it going to have Jill? Is it going to have Leon as the title characters, as the rumour suggests? Maybe. And if it does, maybe that's the reason it's going to fail. One of these characters is going to have to take a little bit of a backseat. And let's face it, Jill and Leon are two front-runner characters. One of them is going to have to take a little bit of a backseat. Regardless of whether the story focuses on them both, one of them has to take a bit of a backseat. Let's take a look at Code Veronica, for example. That was Claire and Chris. They were the two title characters. But let's face it, Chris took a bit of a backseat in that game, didn't he? He sure did. Let's look at Resident Evil 2. Now, this is a clever one. Which one do you think took a backseat in Resident Evil 2? And which one do you think took a backseat in Resident Evil 2 Remake? Now, in Resident Evil 2, Claire took a backseat. In Resident Evil 2 Remake, Claire also took a backseat. Regardless of what you think, what you see, what you say, Leon was the front character in both Resident Evil 2 games. He was. Even though Claire, yes, I know she was there, she was the main character, but Leon was the front runner for both. Is that going to happen in 9? People aren't going to take too kindly to Leon being set back. People aren't going to take too kindly to Jill being set back. That might upset a few people. Will it fail because of that? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. I genuinely can't see that being the reason Resident Evil 9 will fail. But ultimately, there are many different points, many different things that you could look at for Resident Evil 9 and say, it's failed because of that, it's failed because of that, it's failed because of that. Haters are always going to say it fails, no matter what. If you hate Resident Evil 9, you're going to say, oh, it's a failure, look at it. It couldn't sell as many units as Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil 4 Remake, it's a failure. And you know what? That might actually be true, because Capcom may be expecting this game to sell better than Resident Evil 4 Remake. Right now, Resident Evil is on a high. It's hyped, it's massive, it's huge, all because of things like Resident Evil 4 Remake. Capcom have set their expectations high for Resident Evil 9, I can almost guarantee it. So if it comes out and doesn't sell as well as 4 Remake, or even Village, or even 7, is that a failure? Well, do you know what? Yes, it is. Because if it doesn't hit their budget expectations with their targets, it's a failure. And that happens a lot in video games. So for me to say that Resident Evil 9 will fail, on our level, gamers, no, it probably won't. But for Capcom, that's another story. It probably might fail of their expectations. Could that impact the rest of the series? It could. It probably won't. But let's face it, Resident Evil 9 is going to recoup its costs, surely. But I don't think it'll sell as well as some of the other Resident Evils. Anyway, this is just one man's thoughts with these clickbaity kind of will fail videos. Because do you know what? To someone, any game fails. To other people, every game is a success. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.